deal. Now a ceasefire has been announced in Gaza.
I'm very sceptical because I think what will happen is once the hostages are given back to Israel, then Netanyahu and his gang will foment a problem, and they'll get an excuse to invade Gaza again. That's what I'm fearful.
I am in fear and trepidation that it should last. I am worried that at the last ceasefire, after the release of an agreed number of hostages, instead of going on to further negotiations about a permanent ceasefire, Israel restarted the bombing. And one of the reasons we are out is to keep the pressure up that this should not happen this time. But I'm worried.
The problem is that the vast majority of housing in Gaza has been destroyed. The hospitals have gone. I don't see how people are going to survive this winter without getting ill and dying in vast numbers. So in my mind, the genocide has yet to finish. It is merely slowed down. My father's experiences in the war was once the war was over, people still continued to die because they'd been starved for years, and there were diseases, and there were still food shortages, and I think that's what's going to continue happening.
I don't feel hopeful at all. I think that tragically it is a con. It was partly aimed at Nobel Peace Prize for Trump, and also to try to avoid a major revolution everywhere. It's no point, because they're still occupied. Israel is still occupying Palestine. They should get out of the West Bank. They should get out of Gaza, and they should be satisfied just with the borders which were awarded to them in 1948 and 1967. Everything else is a con.
Oh, has there been a ceasefire? I'm aware that people have agreed to a ceasefire, but my information is that the bombing hasn't stopped. I don't think it will stop, and I think there's an absolute danger now that whatever momentum Trump had to generate a ceasefire because of personal gain, his Nobel Peace Prize, now that has gone, I think Trump will lose interest, and I think that they will ignore Israel's continued bombing. I think it will escalate, and I think that they will, once they've finished with Gaza, they will move across to West Bank.
Israel has broken every ceasefire it's entered into over the past 2 years and then some, so I don't have high hopes. I'm just very glad that Gaza will get a bit of a chance to breathe, we'll get some aid in there, but to really have peace in the Middle East, we need right of return of refugees, right? We need one state, no apartheid. We need reparations to the victims of the Nakba, the ethnic cleansing, and now Gaza. And finally, we need a de-radicalization program for Israeli Zionists.
Cautiously optimistic, but obviously it's not the end yet. We need justice for all the people that are being killed. 15 of our colleagues in MSF have been killed. We need justice. We need to rebuild the country. We need to rebuild healthcare.
Well, ceasefire isn't liberation, ceasefire isn't free Palestine, and also it feels that it was made without any Palestinian voices, so I can't say that I would love to be as celebratory as the Palestinian people are themselves in Gaza, and I believe that they must be encouraged and allowed to celebrate, of course, but I don't think it's a time for us to celebrate. I think that we have to ramp up our pressure and do more and more and more to ensure, A, that a ceasefire is lasting, but also that it meets the terms of a true free Palestine and an end to the occupation. Because, I just got back from the West Bank, and the West Bank isn't Gaza. There's no Hamas in the West Bank. What I saw in the West Bank is occupation and apartheid.
I welcome any end to any killing. There's been 2 years of genocide. The official estimates are around 65,000 dead. The Lancet last year put out a report saying 200,000 that have been killed. And I don't know if we'll ever find out the true number of people that have been killed because of the devastation that Israel's inflicted on its defenseless population. So anything that stops that, I'll welcome it. But the Palestinian people have to be at the forefront of any discussion around their future. Their interests have to be put first and foremost. Trump can't use this as some sort of land grab and try and build his Riviera on the Med.
Well, a ceasefire is important. It brings a sense of hope. But even in the wake of a ceasefire, we saw that Israel was not actually cease-firing. And that is problematic because Israel has been engaged not in a war, but in a genocide. And the people of Gaza have suffered so much. And until Palestine is free, none of us are free. That is why we march today, because in a way we are all Palestinians, and that is actually right. But the people have suffered not only a terrible genocide in that sense, but Israel used starvation as a weapon against the Palestinian people. 18,000, 20,000 children have perished in Israel's genocide. We know that the statistics tells us over 67,000 people have been killed by Israel. But the true figures are going to be absolutely greater than that, because we know so many will be buried under the rubble, and so many have suffered. Whole families have disappeared in this genocide. So we cannot rest. And that's why we continue to march. And because the Palestinians are resilient and because they resist, we continue to march. And that is what is important.
What role do you think Tony Blair should have in the future of Gaza?
None. Palestinian people should be in charge of what happens in Palestine.
Tony Blair, Iraq, I was there when I marched. 1 million people marched. No. Only people who are involved should be Palestinian.
I have a role for Tony Blair. There's a river, the Thames, over there. I think he should jump in it.
I think Tony Blair should take the fastest plane to The Hague and not to Palestine. He already ruined Iraq. That's enough for one person for a lifetime. I think he should be nowhere near. Why would he be there? He's an English guy. What right does he have to govern Palestine? I mean, this is just colonialism again. So no, it's the Palestinians who should govern Palestine and not multi-millionaire or multi-billionaire Tony Blair.
And that man should never be anywhere near the ceasefire that's been agreed or anything to do with Palestine.
Oh my word. Tony Blair should be in The Hague. I have no idea why that guy is still wandering around, free as a bird.
He should be buried somewhere up to his neck in sand, somewhere well away from there. It's a colonial response. Any future planning for Gaza has got to involve the Palestinians. And I don't just mean the PLO. I mean, it's got to involve Gazans, and they deserve self-determination. It's shocking.
I think he's known as the butcher of Baghdad, isn't he? You know? Anything to do with the Middle East, that man should not be involved. I don't know what sense anyone has seen in putting him there. It's completely absurd and it's an insult to the world.
Palestine will only be free when the Palestinian people are at the forefront of deciding their future, and war criminals like Tony Blair should be nowhere near the decision making in Palestine or in Gaza.
What about the new conditions on protest that Keir Starmer's thinking about bringing in, including a crackdown on repeated protests like this one?
As a repeated protester, I'm very much against that.
Can you tell us why?
Why am I against the crackdown on protest?
Yeah.
Well, because this is one of the few avenues that we have to express dissent against what our government is doing.
The issue is there is a genocide happening. The issue is not people protesting against genocide. The issue is genocide, and the UK government should be doing all of it can in its power to stop this genocide and to hold people to account who have caused this genocide.
When fascism comes to this country, it won't come with a military coup or with a sudden announcement they're going to ban every single form of protest. It will be death by 1,000 or maybe only 100 or a dozen cuts. They will come up with ridiculous stories like this chant should be banned, this demonstration can't go on. The new idea is you can protest about anything, but you can only have one protest, and then after that it's multiple protests and it should be banned. This is how the right to protest, democracy, free speech, every freedom the British people have had, they've been limited, but they've been real freedoms for well over a century, are simply going to disappear unless we stand up to the most authoritarian government that this country has had since World War II. And they had an excuse in World War II, there's no excuse today.
I would like to ban Starmer as well. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, like it or not.
What do you say to people who say that maybe that's an anti-Semitic chant?
Oh, for God's sake, I am going to join my blog, the Jewish Voice for Peace. In this blog, 4 people had all the family wiped out during the Holocaust. Therefore, please, don't use religion as a weapon. Don't weaponize anti-Semite my food, and I'm being polite.
If he wants to ban the chant river to the sea, then he's ignorant. Because the Israelis, they use it. I mean, in 2013, Sipi Hotovely wrote a big essay, How to Achieve the Greater Israel. And she does use the expression from the river to the sea. And definitely in 2023, she declared that Sipi Hotovely, who was she was Israel's ambassador to the UK. She declared in 2023 that from the river to the sea, the whole land should belong to Israel. To which I say, from the river to the sea, the whole land should belong to Palestine, where Jews should be also allowed to live.
What have we got if we don't have our right to protest? We have an election every 4 years. Well, the voting system in this country is also a two-part system. So if you don't fit within this two-party system, how do you make your voice known? I think it's shameful, and I think we're on dangerous grounds.
We're supposed to be a democratic country. We're supposed to be a country that prides ourselves in allowing people to have the freedom of speech. You know, Labour ministers, Labour MPs came out and defended Tommy Robinson when he marched through these streets with 150,000 people. Now, when they talk about banning organisations like Palestine Action for demonstrating, a direct action organisation, and when they try and talk about banning protest, I think we're on a steady decline towards authoritarianism.
This is diabolical. This is unbelievable that a Labour government, a party that once said it was socialist, would be clamping down on protest, would be clamping down on the right to stand up against a genocide. It is absolutely wrong. And that is why this complicity by this Labour government must end. Not only in terms of what they have done in relation to supporting the genocide in Gaza, but what they have done to the people, the citizens of Britain, in the way in which they have imprisoned so many, detained so many who are simply standing up against a genocide in Gaza, against this genocide and for the Palestinian cause.
But we're all here. We're not going to stop. It's not going to stop. If anything, you know, it's like the beautiful Thai Kiki said when he came back from the flotilla. It's like 100,000 people have now want to join flotillas. So if anything, the more they crack down, like throughout history, the people rise up, and Somebody said the other day, I don't see that posting things makes any difference, but you have to remember that Netanyahu had a meeting the other day about the war that needs to be waged, which he said himself is on social media. They're paying influencers £7,000 per post on behalf of Israel. I believe that the people have the power, and I believe that they're on the ropes. They are. They've been seen for what they are.